You know, the world of work is changing at a lightning pace, and it's all being driven by data. So the big question is, are our training systems actually keeping up? Today, we're going to dive into how big data skills are becoming absolutely essential to future-proof vocational education. So here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll look at what I'm calling VET's data blind spot. Then we'll nail down the new skill set that's so desperately needed. After that, we'll see how these skills empower both students and teachers, lay out a real-world path from data to actual decisions, and wrap up with the super important topic of using all this data responsibly. Okay, let's dive right into the core problem, VET's data blind spot. I want you to think of it like this. It's like trying to navigate the future of work, but you're doing it without a map, without a compass, without a GPS. I mean, without real-time data on what the job market actually needs, these programs are essentially flying blind. They're trying to prep students for jobs, but they don't have a clear picture of which jobs are really in demand. And this creates this huge disconnect. You've got companies with jobs they can't fill, and you've got graduates with skills that just don't match what employers are looking for.
And the urgency here is just massive. Get this. A staggering 90% of companies are seeing a rising demand for AI and data skills. And look, this isn't just a Silicon Valley thing. We're talking about sectors like advanced manufacturing, logistics, places where technicians who can actually read and interpret data from sensors are becoming invaluable. Vet systems have a massive opportunity and, frankly, a responsibility to step up and fill this gap.
And the consequences? Well, they're huge. This isn't just some academic exercise. We're talking about real wasted taxpayer money on outdated programs. We're talking about jobs just sitting empty, which hurts businesses big and small. It's a real threat to national productivity. It becomes this vicious cycle of mismatched skills that we just can't afford to be in.
Okay, so we've seen the problem, and it's a big one. Let's pivot and talk about the solution. What exactly are these crucial big data skills we keep talking about?
First things first, let's demystify this term. Big data, I know, it can sound super intimidating, right? But in the world of vocational training, it's actually really practical. We're talking about using huge data sets, like millions of apprenticeship records or online job ads, to get real, actionable insights. Insights that tell us what needs to be in a curriculum, what a successful apprenticeship looks like, and what students truly need to succeed out there. And you know what? The skills you need for this are way more accessible than you might think. We can basically break it down into 4 key areas. Number 1 is data wrangling. That's a fun term for just taming wild, messy data and making it useful. Second, SQL, which is kind of like the universal language for talking to databases. Third is dashboarding, which is all about creating these clear visual stories with data. And last, but maybe most important, is understanding how to use it all ethically. Now, this brings up a really common question I hear all the time. Do you need to be some kind of math wizard to do any of this? And the answer is a big, resounding no. See, modern tools, think of things like Microsoft Power BI or Tableau, they do all the heavy statistical lifting for you. What's way more important is critical thinking. It's about being curious, asking the right questions of the data, and being able to make sense of the answers. It's not about crunching complex formulas by hand. And that's what makes these skills so incredibly accessible to everyone. So let's get to the really interesting part. How do these skills go beyond just fixing a system and actually transform the day-to-day experience for students and their teachers? Just look at this contrast here. It's night and day. On the left, you've got the old way, content that gets outdated fast, students who are struggling but nobody notices, and pretty limited career paths. But then you look at the right side with data, and the whole picture flips. Curricula can change on the fly, teachers can spot and help students who are at risk, and graduates see real-world rewards like getting paid more. And for the graduates themselves, the benefits are just massive. First, their employability just skyrockets because they have exactly the skills that companies are hunting for. Second, they have more freedom in their careers. They're not just stuck in one narrow lane. And third, and this is a big one, they're more resilient to automation because they have the analytical skills that robots can't easily copy. Oh, I absolutely love this analogy. It just nails the power this gives to teachers. Seriously, imagine being an instructor with a dashboard showing you in real time how every single student is doing. You can see who's engaged, you can spot who's struggling, and you can step in before it's too late. It's all about actively steering your students towards success, not just crossing your fingers and hoping they get there.
Okay, this all sounds fantastic, right? But the million-dollar question is, how do we actually do it? How does a college or a training center turn all this potential into reality?
Here's another really powerful way to think about it, but this time from a leadership angle. Using big data is like having a weather radar for the job market. So instead of just reacting to a skill shortage after it's already a full-blown crisis, leaders can see the storm coming. They can proactively tweak their programs to meet that future demand. It's a total game changer.
And the best part is, you don't have to boil the ocean here. The key is to just start small. Seriously, pick one clear problem to solve, like figuring out what makes students complete their apprenticeships, and just focus on that. Make sure your data is clean, that's huge, and always check what you find with the real experts, the instructors and career counselors on the front lines. Then just document what you learn and repeat. It's a cycle of learning and improving.
But of course, there's always the practical question of money. What if you're a smaller college? What if you don't have a massive IT budget to throw at this?
Okay, this is where things get really cool, because the barrier to entry has never ever been lower. There are tons of low-cost or even free ways to get started. You can use free versions of powerful platforms like Tableau Public. You can tap into open source software, which is just a goldmine of free tools. You can practice on public data sets, and tons of companies offer free software licenses for academic use. The resources are out there.
All right, last but definitely not least, we have to talk about something that underpins this entire transformation, building this new capability on a strong, unshakable ethical foundation. You know the saying, with great power comes great responsibility, and that is absolutely true here. It's non-negotiable to protect student privacy by anonymizing data. We have to constantly check our systems to make sure they aren't accidentally creating unfair disadvantages for certain groups. We have to be totally transparent with students about how their data is being used to help them. And of course, you've got to follow the law, like GDPR.
Look, the bottom line is this. You can have all the technical skills in the world, but if you don't pair them with a rock-solid ethical foundation, you're building on sand. This isn't just about avoiding lawsuits, it's about building trust. It's about being responsible stewards of the information people are entrusting you with.
Because ultimately, that's the goal, isn't it? We want to create this virtuous cycle where data helps teachers teach better, which leads to better outcomes for students, which in turn leads to successful careers and a stronger economy for everyone. It's an ecosystem built on fairness and the smart use of information.
And that brings us to our final thought for today. The tools are here. The data is here. They're offering us a clear window into the future of work. So the question we really have to ask ourselves isn't, can we afford to do this? It's, what is the real cost if we choose not to look? Let's choose to look. Let's build a future where every single student gets the skills they need to thrive.